One of the really interesting things in what we do is that if it had been 1967, there would have been broad agreement on almost everything. We'd be talking about the throw weights of nuclear weapons and arguing about Thomas Schelling, but we'd agree on 90% of what's going on. And we instead live in a world that I think is best described by Tom Stoppard's great character in Arcadia, Valentine, when he says it's the best possible time to be alive when everything you thought you knew is wrong. And so bringing different perspectives and different generations and different nationalities from the West together, it seemed that it was time, rather than to engage in Spenglerian doom and gloom, but to talk about where the West is the West valid, does it need reinventing, and how do we proceed and move forward in the broadest possible way? And I can't think of a better panel to do that, and that's a cliche that is normally said, but in this case I genuinely mean it. And I start with my friend General Klaus Naumann, who I've never sat on a panel where he didn't add edge to. Known by everyone around the world for what he does. And let me say that I've never found him to be anything but edgy, and he brings perspective from this and reminds us of being a practitioner as well as a thinker. Then there's my friend Rem Korteweg here at HCSS, who epitomizes a younger generation of Europeans moving their way up the ranks, and I think gives us a kind of post-Cold War setting that is necessary. My very good friend David Armitage from Washington days, the National Intelligence Council, and is an adjunct at American University. David is a practitioner and a thinker, and someone I was with in the trenches in Washington in the 1990s, rather colorful period of time. And I think David, as always says to me in my think tank days, great idea, John, but it will never, ever work in Washington. And it's been a very useful check on my enthusiasms through the years. And David, thank you so much for coming. Thomas Waluszek, who's been around forever, it seems. We've known each other a long time. The Center for European Reform, which I think over a period of time has done some of the most cutting-edge, soul-searching work on Europe. And far from cheerleading on that topic, has been a tough critic and yet a staunch ally of the European project. And I think that mix of things is exactly what's needed at the moment. And Eric Jones, professor, SAIS Bologna, maybe the sweetest gig in the world, as we were saying, but brings an academic perspective, but also somebody who knows what's going on with the euro, which of course will overshadow a lot of what we're talking. The cliches about economics mattering in foreign policy that we used to all nod about and then move on, I think are now proven realities. And so I look forward, Eric, to drilling down a little bit on where we are. The way to begin, and what we intend to do, is have the panelists talk about developing one idea over just 2 or 3 minutes, very briefly, and then we take the discussion from there. This first session, the structure is that we're going to thematically look at 2 of our 4 major themes for the project, reinventing foreign policy and reinventing economics. Then this afternoon, we're going to look at reinventing global governance and reinventing liberal democracy. But within that theme, of that baseline, there's a lot of room for free-form jazz here, and that's indeed what we want. We want this to be a real discussion. We don't want prepared statements, and so we're going to see where this takes us. And as Rem says, I think this is a glorious experiment, so I look forward to hearing from each of you for a few minutes, then we're going to open it up to a discussion between us with me throwing in questions, but we really do stress the interactive nature of where we're going. So thank you so much for going. General, to you, if you don't mind starting.